Welcome to another episode of Talk to the Fedora, chatting about hard-hitting, honest entrepreneur wisdom that you can use to grow your small business. My name is Jarrod Goldsmith from eSAX Virtual Events, and today we're very pleased to be welcoming Susan Blain. Susan's passion to empower and inspire people to tell their stories from the heart. She's been in business over 30 years as a business development manager in B2B, with a distinguished record of achieving outstanding results and building trusted relationships. Susan helps leaders step into their authentic leadership through the power of vulnerability and storytelling. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, that was well said. Thank you so much for the introduction and the opportunity, Jarrod. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan. Let's start off by where are you calling in from, please?
Ottawa, Canada.
Excellent. Capital. Love it.
Yes.
Susan, like we mentioned quickly before, usually you're the one interviewing people, so this is a real treat to be the one having you in front of the camera this time.
Well, everybody has a story, right, Jarrod?
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to getting to know you a little bit more. Susan, let's talk a bit about your background. Who are you, and what is your organization all about, please?
Who am I? That's a great question. So open-ended. Right now, I'm a founder, and I'm for the first time a social entrepreneur. So I've launched a social enterprise, not for profit driven project called the Dare to Be Vulnerable Project. And it's all about engaging conversation around our mental health, Jarrod, and making it more commonplace. I've been saying the last couple of days, I've been out at a few events. I said, I want to make mental health cool. Talking about our mental health more comfortable, like we talk about our physical health, our gut health, right? It's important. It's part of, as Kevin Ford says, the three-legged stool: our financial health, our physical health, and our mental health. How much time do we really spend? Wrong finger. How much time do we really spend with that mental health?
Right.
I think we spend a lot of time thinking about our financial health and our physical health, and often taking action towards better wellness in those areas. So this is really about focusing and spending more time on our mental health. It's critical.
It's such an important part of any organization, business, community leaders. Most of the time, we're so focused on our business, we're creating something out of nothing. And like you so wisely noted, the mental health often takes a back seat. And so I'm really encouraged to hear what you're up to. Susan, who would resonate the most with your story?
It's a great question. It's the one I use when I open up my conversations because it's so great. Thank you for asking. I think almost anybody can relate, but specifically someone perhaps at the age and stage of life like I am. I had a very robust corporate career, mostly here in Ottawa in B2B, as you mentioned. And as I reflect back, I've struggled all my life with my mental health. I struggled a lot in corporate. I was a silent sufferer. And what people saw, of me and what was going on behind the scenes was very different. And my mental health struggle started when I was a teenager, and I had suicidal ideation in my 20s. I sought out help then, which was a big, important step. Asking for help is the first step. And I was in therapy for a while. I had postpartum depression, and that was 33 years ago. I did not know, but what I know today, I understand and know what I was going through. That's what I had when I was 25. And each sort of decade, I can reflect back and see where I had struggle. And in 2019, Jarrod, I had what they call a big trauma, and I lost everything through an act of betrayal. And I was hospitalized. I was suicidal. I was hospitalized 2 days before COVID swept the world. Here in Ottawa at the Queensway Carleton Mental Health Unit, I went in on March 11th, and March 11th, 12th, 13th was the day that everything kind of swept through the world with COVID. And it was the beginning of my healing journey, because I finally had somebody that identified, I was working with a psychiatrist there. She identified what I was going through, and I needed somebody to explain that to me, to tell me that, that there was hope. I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorder, and PTSD.
Hmm.
So this is what depression, anxiety disorder, and PTSD looks like.
Right. And now you're turning that into this podcast that dare to be vulnerable to help others. It's
Yeah, and it's more than a podcast, Jarrod. It's going to be, because you know how effective these information pieces are, and how how we can take them and distribute them far and wide online and have an impact, which is what you're doing. And yes, we're creating phase one. We're creating 48 stories, mental health stories, sitting down with people who are sharing their lived experiences. And diversity is really key. We want to make sure we have people from all different backgrounds and some marginalized groups that don't often get to have a voice is very important. And it demonstrates, it reflects the landscape in this city, in our country. So the 48 stories is what we're working on right now. And then they'll be distributed and circulated far and wide, each piece for an entire year, over 36 touch points a month. I'm very excited about that, because ultimately we want these stories to have a positive impact on people who are struggling in silence. Give them permission.
That's such an important part. A lot of us, what would you say about being siloed? A lot of us start businesses, organizations, and we're so focused on building the brand or the business that we might not take the time for the mental health side. But like you mentioned, Susan, it's such an important part of all of us. Like, how important is the concept of collaboration for you while working on helping to what was the word, destigmatize mental health?
Well, yeah, bust the stigma, for sure. That's the term I'm using. I say break the silence, bust the stigma, remove the shame, and save lives. Yeah, silos have been in existence in our professional worlds for a long time within organizations. I think that COVID is having an impact on that. I think we're going to start to see more and more breaking down of silos because of our desire and need to connect. Collaboration for this project is really important. I've had 160 conversations, Jarrod, just one-on-one, sharing the project with people.
Wow. Yeah.
And everyone has something, everyone feels something about this work, because everyone's affected. There's stats, but when I ask people, how many people do you think are affected by mental health? 99% of the people say everybody. So that in itself, and because the dial was turned up, it's not like it's something new, but COVID really turned up the dial because of the isolation, the fear, right? The unknown, the uncertainty.
Would you say that COVID brought the idea of mental health more to the forefront than, let's say, most other issues?
I would say so. And it needs some power boosters right now. I mean, breaking the stigma has been work that, even in this city, the Royal Ottawa started a campaign 20 years ago with Daniel Alfredson. You Know Who I Am was the name of the campaign 20 years ago. It was the first hospital in the country, Jarrod, to launch an anti-stigma campaign. And look where we are right now. We still need it.
Yeah.
We still need it more than ever, because there's more people struggling and suicide is on the rise.
And how would somebody go find the resources? Let's say like you're a small business owner, you have a family, you're trying to make ends meet, money's tight, and the whole idea of mental health, people struggling with this. Where does somebody go for resources, Susan?
Well, there are a few places, but I'm working on a back end for this project to be a portal for people to come and see the different resources and tools that are out there, depending on where they're at. Like the Youth Services Bureau has amazing resources and tools for youth and their families and caregivers. There's a new 3-digit number that's out. I forget it now. We can look for it and put the link on there. There's an event next week where we have 4 of the hospitals coming out to talk about the resources and the tools that are out there. But here's the challenge, Jarrod. There's more demand than resources and people available to help.
Are you finding that more demand? Yes, for sure. That some of the other organizations they're collaborating amongst themselves for the good of the bigger picture.
My hope and plan with this project is to help bring some of those together and break some. There are silos within that as well. Our medical system, right? And so it's to break that down somehow and create a place where ideally my vision is that there would be bot technology and that someone would come, because a lot of people even have family physicians, right?
Yeah.
So that's me, actually. I'm without a family physician at the moment. I'm self-employed. I don't have an employment plan that I can tap into. So what are some things that we can do that are maybe outside of the system, if the system has a waiting lineup? What are some of the things that we can do? And I'm a great example of that, because when I went into the hospital and came out, COVID had shut all the programs. Everything was, nobody was doing anything. So I have navigated using my own tools, building a support system around me to get to the other side. So I think there's a lot of choices out there besides just within the medical practitioners, toolboxes or options. I think there's many options, and this is what I'm seeing. This is part of the movement, is making that information available and having people actually be able to customize their path to well-being.
I can only imagine the challenges you were dealing with COVID. Everything shut down, and then here you are trying to create, more awareness and some resources to help other people with mental health issues. What about the concept of networking, Susan? I've seen you in and out of the business, the entrepreneur community for many, many years now, and you're always a breath of fresh light, breath of fresh air. And
Thank you.
How has networking helped you with this mission?
Well, I've had 160 online conversations, Jarrod, and I've now been out to, last night I was at an event. A couple of weeks ago, I was, during the holidays, I went to a Christmas party that donated the funds that they raised to this project. But it's been only a handful. I have to also share that I was struggling and still struggle a bit. It's getting better as I face the fear, but some social anxiety. Going back out into those environments.
Oh, and I think a lot of people would probably be in a similar situation, especially because of COVID. Many of us are much more, at least since COVID, more comfortable at home.
Well, yes, and for sure. But there within lies also a challenge of us in terms of our mental health, not moving to the wellness. Like, we're all somewhere on that spectrum, right? We have a mental health. So we either have good mental health or bad mental health, or we're somewhere in between. And what we want to do is make sure that we spend time moving the dial towards mental well-being. And some of this social anxiety that's around out there keeps us siloed. As individuals, right? And comfortable and safe at home. And that has a negative impact on our mental health.
Yeah. I mean, getting out and associating with other people and just talking to people
just
about
connecting, and how are you? And I think there's just more authenticity now than there used to be. I spent so many years, I think, in a very ego driven. The media is very ego driven. It's me, look at me, and I think what we're seeing more is, I hope, and that's what this is all about, is more compassion, more authenticity, more courage, Daring to be vulnerable is a powerful thing, and I, I, I just can't stop now because I see how impactful it is on us as human beings and also as leaders. Authentic leadership, Jarrod, is vulnerability.
That's a
And
very good point. Yeah.
it's so, and we're restructuring. We're all dealing with something brand new, right? These new hybrid working environments, leadership, humanizing leadership, humanizing the workplace. That's what this is all about. And the biggest part of it is creating courageous conversations within the workplace. And this project is part of that, and we're very excited to do that. We've got big plans. This is not something that's just 48 stories and stops. It's something that's going to continue. We've made some inroads. You mentioned that earlier. It is being talked about more, but now we need to take action.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the successes that you've had, Susan, to help others. What about mentorship or coaching? Is that something that you've had access to or that you do yourself?
Well, I'm a big fan of coaching. I do work with a coach right now. I've been doing a lot of stuff I've focused on in the last couple of years since my trauma, Jarrod, has been personal,
Hmm.
healing, mindset work, embodiment work, meditation, those kind of things, that just really bring me back to center. I still struggle every day with my anxiety. So I spend a lot more time than most. Now it's my work. But I spent in the last 3 years a lot of time and with support. I work with a grief and loss specialist. I work with a feminine empowerment coach now with embodiment work, and then you've got to put these things into practice, right? I mean, throughout my career, I had an opportunity to participate in so many great events as you have in your career. And I always like to take a golden nugget, something
Right.
tangible that I can apply to my life. And I look at learning in general like that. But the onus is on us to put those things into practice and actually make some changes or shift or evolve in a direction that you wish to go. And
Yeah.
that's been the last 3 years I've been deep in it. And this
Um,
project is part of that healing too. When you do work that you're passionate about and it makes a difference, it not only makes a difference for others, but it helps keep me going.
yeah. You mentioned in 3 years you wanted to have all of these things accomplished. Did you happen to write a business plan or have some sort of idea on where you wanted to see it going?
Yeah,
Keeping in
well,
mind that the market of our podcast is for small business entrepreneurs.
yes, well, which is what I am now,
Yeah.
and a social entrepreneur, which is sort of an interesting twist, but a business just the same. I've just created a board. But to your question, it's just started off as a vision for sharing our mental health stories and how important engaging in conversation is. We need to bust that stigma. We need to keep on talking. And that's the part I enjoy. Now, building a business around that, a business plan, an action plan is something I'm getting help with. I participate in, I've got a great team that's formed around this. This is my first business. So I'm not sure I call myself a business person, to be honest. I think I tend to bend more towards artistry, and my craft is creating conversation, creating a safe place for vulnerable conversation.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
the concept of social entrepreneurship,
yeah,
that really suits it well, it would seem.
well, that's what it is, right? It's about social impact. It's about change. And that's the mental health space. It's creating change. It's part of a movement. And I see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories out there. I see Dare to Be Vulnerable as a brand that gets attention from Brene Brown, from Oprah, from, just, I want to go from city to city and create 48 stories in each city across the country.
Yeah.
I'm starting in our own backyard because this is where I grew up professionally, and I know a lot of folks, and there's a lot of great people who are willing to step forward and share.
Yeah. And those are great aspirations. And I hope to see you on Oprah one of these days.
Thank you.
Going forward, any organization people are starting or a movement or social enterprise, it takes some sort of cash flow, money.
Oh.
How would you would you care to share some thoughts about
I absolutely will. And there is a one level of one way, and it's called bootstrapping.
Yeah. I think most of us have been there.
So that is definitely where I'm at. My trauma in 2019, I lost everything, and that included financials. I was homeless for 20 months, Jarrod. So I am starting at this age and stage of my life from scratch, and that means this business as well. So I'm at the fundraising stage. We've gotten a little bit of funding in. I've been able to do a few things, get a few operational tools in place that make my life a little bit easier, because it's difficult. Not only am I a social entrepreneur building a startup, bootstrapping it, I'm also solopreneur, right? I put 50 hours a week into this project, and it does not support me. I have 4 other gigs.
What does bootstrapping mean to you, Susan? How
Bootstrapping means you're using money that you have yourself to build, just build whatever you need. Like just some of the tools, like I use StreamYard, I signed up for that. I bought some banners for some events that we have. I'm using some online tools to, continue to create content and do these great things. And I am fundraising. I'm looking for corporate partners, and after a year and 13 months, we're starting to get some traction and an opportunity to share the project on a platform like this supports that too. So it's using all the tools and resources out there that are for free,
right,
that can help you build awareness around your project, and asking for what you need. This project is grassroots. Mm-hmm. Right? And the first phase is creating those 48 stories. So we're looking for people who will dare to be vulnerable and share their stories, and people from different backgrounds and ages and stages in their life, and culturally. And then we're looking for partners who want to support and be part of a movement, a grassroots movement that's really focused on busting stigma. And then it's and then looking for anybody that wants to lend their expertise. We've got people who are very interested in helping with the bot technology at the back end. I know nothing about that. Students who want to do co-op and help out with the project. There's a lot of ways that we can bootstrap our business and get to a point where we then have sort of a baseline awareness of what you're offering the community, what you're presenting, and a community begins to form around that. That's what I've noticed in the last year, is that there's a community that's starting to form. There's conversations going on about this project outside of me having them.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And if you can do that, build that community, and it's from the heart, and it's something that has great impact, community will step up and support it. And that's what I'm starting to see.
Right. You mentioned that you had 3 or 4 other gigs to make this possible. How do you manage your time? So let's talk about time management, Susan.
I had a great coach years ago back in corporate, Ann Max. She's a productivity coach, and she taught me how to time block. And it's something that's always stuck with me. And the first thing that I time block for myself is my time. Time for me. That goes in my calendar first, and everything else goes around it.
Yeah.
So I time block for this project, morning, and I use the Calendly program that has been really helpful. I've just started using that so people can book meetings. So that saves a lot of time back and forth and stuff. So morning, afternoon, and weekends and evenings, I'm usually sitting on the couch and catching up on correspondence. I dog walk, I dog sit, and I bake pies, and I house sit. And I manage all of that around my schedule.
Right.
You know what I love about it, Jarrod? Because a lot of people say, well, Susan, why don't you just go out and get a job and then just build this on the side? And, you know how much we love hearing that.
Oh, yeah.
Not. I understand people are coming from a good place, but I have carved out 4 or 5 jobs that flow with my life. I love going out and spending time with dogs. You know all about that.
Yeah.
I love going on my hikes every day. I take a pack. It's for my mental health. It's so beautiful out there now in Ottawa. It's a winter wonderland.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a break for me.
Well, walking in the forest is something I discovered during COVID. There's a forest and paths right by my home. I take the dogs out for walks every day, and I could go out for hours a day working on my 15, 20,000 steps. And I felt it really helped me to disconnect from work and just connect with nature. And for the mental health side, that's something that's really been important for me.
Oh, good for you. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's key. It really is key. And those are the kind of things that this project wants to bring to light and share. There's so many in all of these stories that we're creating. It's about the hero's journey, really.
Right.
Through, we've all struggled. And we want to make sure that people know that there's hope, that there's, if I can use the word recovery, but there's a wellness path that we can all contribute to and create for ourselves and just live a more fulfilling life, right?
Right. Since you started these initiatives, Susan, are there any successes that come to mind that you're most proud of that you'd like to share?
In the 13 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I formed a board.
Yeah.
We had our first meeting this week, and we did a sharing circle amongst us, and we all shared our stories. It was powerful. I had one board member who said to me, I have sat on many boards, Susan. In all my years, I have never had an experience like this.
Wow.
On a board.
It's very powerful.
And it speaks to the work. It speaks to the power of sharing our stories. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the people that are part of this, and it validates again how important this work is and how much it means to people and how we're all touched by it. Yeah. We have an event with Canada North Hub 350, University of Ottawa, and all the hospitals coming up, and the Dare to Be Vulnerable Project is a partner, and we were asked to participate, and I'm so excited. That's a big milestone.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. This is just the first of many great successes that you're going to be having. What about the other side, Susan? Some lessons learned, perhaps some challenges that you've had, and we could talk about adapting, resiliency, work-life balance.
Well, challenges are plentiful and challenges are every day. Challenges with my mental health every day, because that's what I talk so openly about. Anxiety, fear, when you're bootstrapping a business and you're living month to month, there's with no safety net. Yeah. And also because I experienced homelessness, there's always this fear that it could happen again. And that is a contributing sort of factor to my mental health, which is why I work so hard, having tools and practices and rituals that keep me moving forward, keep me in the present. Dogs are a big part of that. Yeah. So the mental health is a challenge every day. I think any entrepreneur will tell you that, that you've got, you have to be your own cheerleader often. You have to keep yourself going. And as a solopreneur and in these times where we're isolated, it's important to connect, and that's something that you're so good at, is connecting people and bringing people together, whether it's virtually or live. And we spoke about that at the beginning and the importance of that. So tapping into people has been a lifesaver for me. Tapping into people who are now helping me with this project, having weekly calls. So connected to a group of like-minded, people. In my case, it's people we're all focused on the mission, the work. So, and we're all open and vulnerable and honest and authentic, and that group is growing. So it helps lift me up. Right.
I mean, what I'm hearing, Susan, it's all about the relationship side. It's not just the transactional, you help me, I help you, rub my back sort of thing. It's growing together, learning about other people, giving them an opportunity to want to collaborate.
It's community.
Yeah.
It's community. And, it's emotional based. And for a lot of people, that's uncomfortable, right? Until it's not. Until we realize how powerful that can be for our own existence, for our own happiness, for our sense of fulfillment. And once I think people get a taste of that, it's almost hard to ignore, which is where I'm at.
Well, that's how I feel about when somebody says, get a real job, get a day job so you get your benefits. I'm thinking, well, one, as an entrepreneur, small business owner for many years, it might be difficult to work for somebody else. And two, like, no, I can't be fired. Like, you can't be fired again. Like, it's happened to me many times. So
Yes, indeed. Me too. Yeah. I never thought about that. I can't be fired. That's true. Although I wanted to fire myself a few times.
Susan, we talked a bit about, some of the future aspirations you had. Eventually, doing across Canada tours and inviting all the hospitals and maybe getting on Oprah one of these days. I look forward to that. But what can people do to help you achieve those goals?
Well, share their stories, become a corporate partner. We have a very comprehensive media strategy planned, not just here locally, but nationally, to bring this brand really to the forefront. And have a great impact. That's our objective. So, people getting involved in sharing their stories, people getting involved in supporting it financially, or any way that they can, just becoming part of the community and sharing the stories once they're out. We're going to be setting a launch date for this and bringing the community together, Jarrod, to have a launch where we will show clips of all of the pieces that we've created and all the guests and all the corporate partners, and again, bringing community together for one purpose: to make mental health cool, to make conversation around mental health comfortable and easy, and in that, ultimately, you save lives.
Yeah, that's a huge goal. Yeah, love it. Like bringing together people for a mission like that, because a lot of times, like we started off the conversation, the mental health, it's often not as discussed as it should be. So congratulations, Susan, for all that. What about we're going to be wrapping up shortly, but what about some closing words of wisdom? Let's say for the entrepreneur, the small business owners who are struggling in several aspects of their business, who may or may not realize that it could be mental health. What are your thoughts?
Well, you said it earlier in terms of coaching. I believe in coaching. I believe to find somebody, whether you pay them or not. I mean, some people are willing to mentor others, without that. But just finding someone who is doing something, whether it's something that exactly what you're looking to do or something else, but somebody who's ahead of you on the path. And because we follow a lot of people, right? Like social media allows us to do that. We'll reach out and connect and say, I'm a person, would you have some time to have a conversation? I've had a lot of conversations with people about that. And, so build a community around you. Build often, because entrepreneurs within their personal tribes, their families and their friends, they're often misunderstood. unless they're entrepreneurs themselves in the family or their personal circle. So we have to build a new tribe. And that's what I'm doing. Building a new tribe with your new purpose, your new vision. If this is a brand new business,
Yeah.
or you're new enough, then it's really important to build a support structure of new people. And that can be scary, but dare to be vulnerable and reach out. And I'll tell you, it's amazing when you ask how often people will step up to help.
Yeah.
Whether that's an hour a week, an hour a month, and then you slowly build that. It's taken me a year and a bit, and I have a completely new tribe of people in my life.
Yeah.
And they're supporting me. They're supporting this project. They believe in me. And I tell you, Jarrod, some days, when I am low and I just want to break down and I want to give up, I can reach out to any of those people, and they give me, it's like a boost, a booster shot, and I'm good. And we all need that. Like Simon Sinek says that. He has a group of people, and he says their motto is nobody cries alone. That if somebody's crying, they reach out to the others. And he talks about vulnerability too, and how powerful it is in leadership. It's the most difficult thing to do, to be vulnerable, because it's scary, but it's the most powerful thing for connection and trust.
Reach out and engage with people, with your community or your new community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. How can somebody get in touch with you, please? Well,
Susan at susanblain.com is my email, or jump on daretobevulnerable.com. Check out the work that we're doing. And there's several options there. It says reach out and connect, and click on that. It goes right to my email address. We're going to be evolving that as the stories come out. They'll be visible on that platform and keeping people informed as we evolve. LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, I do LinkedIn Lives and Facebook Lives every week, and I keep the conversation going. And those social media platforms and Instagram are places you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. So today, folks, on Talk to the Fedora, we were joined by Susan Blain of Dare to Be Vulnerable. We hope this segment has provided some wisdom that you can use to grow your small business. Please subscribe to the eSAX YouTube channel and check out some of the hundreds of other videos we have on entrepreneurial content. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jarrod. You're awesome.